Angry protests in Rochester, New York last night reacted to a grand jury decision not to charge any police officers in the death of a black man. Daniel Prude died nearly a year ago after an arrest caught on video. Police physically restrained Prude, putting a hood over his head. His family says he was in a mental health crisis, acting erratically when they called police. The officers say they followed procedure. Our national correspondent Jericka Duncan reports on the decision, and we remind you the video of the arrest is hard to watch.
This is the moment a grand jury spent months focusing on, according to retired New York City Police Sergeant Joseph Jackalone.
So they're trying to contain him, they're trying to hold him down, and this becomes the seminal point where Daniel dies. And this is where the Attorney General fails to make her case.
After the grand jury decided not to indict any of the 7 officers involved in Daniel Prude's death, New York Attorney General Letitia James said her office presented the strongest case possible.
We sought a different outcome than the one the grand jury handed us today.
In police body cam videos, Prude can be seen handcuffed on the ground, naked, wearing a mesh spit hood over his head as an officer pushes his face against the ground and another presses his knee to Prude's back. The 41-year-old was held down for about 2 minutes until he stopped breathing and was given CPR. He died a week later from complications of asphyxia, according to the coroner's report.
If you're going after the police officers, in this case for murder, you have to show intent. That's impossible to try to prove into a grand jury, let alone in a court of law.
Lawyers for the officers say holding someone to the ground is still an approved restraint technique in the department.
As we sit here 11 months to the day later, the training that these officers employed, the techniques that they employed, nothing has changed at all in terms of the Rochester Police Department's stated policies in dealing with situations such as this.
Despite the decision, Prude's family is pursuing a civil case against the officers.
There's a different standards, different burden of proof in that case. And we don't have to prove intentional conduct there. We can succeed with negligent or reckless conduct. And that's a big legal difference.
The officers involved are still on leave pending an internal police investigation. For CBS This Morning, I'm Jericka Duncan.
You know, it is, when it says this video is difficult to watch, that certainly is a good example of that. I'm just struck by, to me, the inhumanity of how this man was treated.
Yes.
No blanket, no jacket, no nothing, and he's just...
A hood on the ground.
A hood on the ground.
He's in
and he's naked.
Distress.
Yes.
And he's naked. His brother called for help for him. They were trying to get him help for mental distress.
And
that's how it ended.
we always hear, Tony, about following procedure. And it makes me think maybe we need to rethink all the procedures, or maybe have another number besides 911 when someone is clearly has a mental issue. That's extremely upsetting to watch.
It sure is.